guys, Cronus isn't the worst character because he's a jerk. He's the worst character because of the hive swap delays he indirectly caused. To be honest, I couldn't find any more of a reason to hate a character. An interesting note about Homestuck is that outside of the story, a lot of people like to fixate on characters. We have the beta kids, we have the alpha kids, we have the beta trolls, and we have the dancestors, aka the alpha trolls, the pre-scratch trolls, whatever you want to call them. Now, there are different variations of who wants to fixate on what character, depending on interest. And today, we are going to fixate on one very interesting individual who, he has a reputation, and I made a particular post being like, hey guys, if this gets 30 retweets and likes, I'll talk about Cronus. And, so here we are. We are going to be talking about Cronus Ampora, and why not post this and make it relevant during Sea Dweller Week on Twitter, because to try and make some kind of excuses to why it exists. Even if someone decides to listen to this not on this day, it could be a week from now and it's still going to be weird, but we try what we can. Anyways, it's not just me. Who are you?
It's me, Bonavalope. You might remember me from a little thing called Homestuck.
All right, give us your give us your resume. Tell us what you've done.
I am responsible for Galora. You're welcome. I also everybody probably remembers me from all of my Octopimp videos that I did way back in the day. I also shitpost a lot on Twitter.com.
Nice. Yeah, and people are probably wondering, how did this poor person get trapped in this stupid video with Cro?
No! I'm number one Ampora apologist, if anything. I've been an Ampora apologist since day fucking one.
I mean, I don't think you want that on your resume specifically.
It's at the top in like 16 font, like.
I guess I should also say that since this is going to be the first video, that I should probably introduce myself. My name's Cro. I go by YoItsCro on Twitter, Coldjoy, Tumblr, and it's just very fitting that, my nickname correlates to this topic, which is Cronus Ampora, a very interesting lad. So yeah, we're doing this because I talk too much flack on Twitter, and I can't pussy out, so we're just gonna go about this.
You gotta step up, you've gotta own your name. Now's your chance.
Yeah, and this video is just gonna be by itself. I don't think we're gonna do some kind of series in the future fixating on characters, maybe auditory talks about particular subjects. I don't want to call it a podcast.
You could call it episode 413. Trick people.
And they'll,
it's been going on for that long. Where's the rest of the episodes?
I mean, I don't want to trick people. If they find this, they're just gonna be like, "Where's the rest?" And I'll be like, "This is the rest. Welcome to the show." If anyone's made it this far into the video, I'll congratulate them. But we definitely do have a little note structure on how we're gonna go about things. Now we're going to exactly right now, get into some little introductory, because we could just start talking about Cronus, but I feel that it's important to go over what Cronus is about in terms of his character, because you can't really back up your conversation unless you know who exactly you're talking about. And frankly, the wiki does no justice.
As we found out.
Yeah, as we found out. I was trying to figure out notes to talk about this guy, and the wiki, it really feels like it was written gigapause error or something.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm just gonna give some quick little factoids about Cronus. So Cronus Ampora was introduced in Openbound / MetaQuest Part 2, which was released on September 24th, 2012. He is supposed to be the archetype of a nice guy, which, I mean, y'all know what a nice guy is on the internet at this point. Cronus is supposed to represent this, as many of the before and trolls are supposed to represent different internet tropes of people who hang out on Tumblr and the likes, maybe 4chan, Reddit, stuff like that. Along with his nice guy trope, he is a greaser and he is human kin. So he is kin with a human greaser, quote unquote, because it's definitely fake.
It's a disaster.
Yeah, it's a disaster. He's a disaster. Like, he's doing it for attention from what it seems to read. But we'll get into that when it comes to, like, digging more into our personal interpretations. Either way, Cronus identifies as a human greaser, which is supposed to be a play off of stuff like Otherkin. He is a Bard of Hope, which is the opposite of Prince of Rage, which belongs to Carlos Makara. And it is the passive variation in opposed to the Prince of Hope, which is Cronus Ampora, who happens to be his dancestor. Along with that, Orphan or Dual Scar happens to be Cronus's Alternian self. And in regards to Aridin, outside of the greaser trope and the nice guy trope, Cronus's personality also borrows from people's Fanon views or exaggerated views on the negative traits of Aridin Ampora, which is supposed to be that he flirts a lot, like, he is very pushy toward people when it comes to his quadrants, and is just kind of an overall jerk with that. Though Cronus kind of takes it up to 11 because that's very amplified within his personality, where, well, within my regards with Aridin was not as fucking bad as Cronus when it came to being thirsty.
God, no. In fact, fucking at some point, Aridin does make the comment of being like, yeah, you're the worst. Like, doesn't like him at all.
Yeah, he's just like, he knows that he at least is a tier above.
Yeah.
I think we all know.
Aridin best boy, confirmed.
Basically. Cronus's talk sprites within Openbound were actually created by Xmag. I'm probably not pronouncing that right. Xmag, Amag, I'm sorry. But yeah, I mean, they've been around in the community for a long time, currently doing work for Vast Air, and I'm just very glad for this connection, along with the fact that Cronus's name may have branched off of the certain ideas for troll names that were originated from Toby Radiation Fox. So there we go. We know Cronus's parents.
There they are, everybody.
I'm glad.
Cronus Undertale Ampora.
No.
Vast Erikin.
We'll go over his story in a second, but let's name off some other interesting things about Cronus. His quirk, how I've seen it, it's VW in most cases, WV in smaller cases, mostly the former. He doesn't talk with certain grammatical signs such as like apostrophes. Everything's lowercase, and when he wants to capitalize an entire word, it will turn the B into an 8, or at least from what we've seen from one instance. Whether or not this was an error, can't say. I kind of want it to not be, so I can correlate that back to Urania, but that's my own shtick.
I would agree with you. I feel like it's very heavily implied that it's supposed to be like, it's not a typo. Like, he's actually doing that. I also, I was under the impression that his typing quirk was like, it's not necessarily like randomly V's and W's and W's and V's. It's, how do I explain it? Like, a V would come before a W if the word started with a W, or come after it if it's hard to explain. I'd literally have to type it out, but that's how I was to like understand it.
I think what it is that every V is turned into VW, and if a word starts with W, then it turns to VW, or if it's toward the beginning of a word, like its first half, then it's VW. Yeah. But it seems like if the W comes after a noun, it turns into WV. Though I could be wrong.
Yeah. No, I that's kind of how I was trying to explain it, but again, it's like I don't know how to.
Cronus is kind of fucking confusing because he's a mess.
It's fucking weird.
Neat facts. Yeah, this could actually run to the fun facts, but we'll actually save that because we're actually going to talk about Urania's backstory with him. So you can read it if you go over Openbound yourself, or if you just go to the wiki. So yeah, here's what Urania has to say about Cronus's backstory. The Bard of Hope may seem a little jaded these days, but once he had a deeply abiding,
Abiding.
there we go. Okay, let me start that again. Abiding faith in magic and dedicated himself to becoming a great wizard. He became convinced he was hatched to defeat an extraordinarily evil magician, one he swore the angels foretold of. Though when pressed for the name of the man, he would not say it, claiming it was too dangerous to even enunciate. Part of his self-aggrandizing, there we go,
Yeah, aggrandizing.
aggrandizing mythos was that this magician once somehow from afar tried to strike him down at a young age, so he would never have to face him. But the evil spell was deflected, sealing the magician's spirit away in a series of unassuming vessels until he could find some other cunning way to enter our universe. The attack supposedly left him with his distinctive scar, but at some point he became disillusioned with magic. If there ever was any truth to his far-fetched vision, the legacy of defeating the evil magician would have to be passed on to his descendant, or if his descendant proved to be as much as a failure as he did, then perhaps on some other hero of hope. I'm unsure why he suffered this crisis of faith, aside from the obvious reasons having to do with an overall lack of character or any other redeeming qualities. Perhaps someone talked him out of his beliefs, maybe a friend close to him, or if one is to believe his fantasy held any water, perhaps someone who was in league with the evil magician. So, I always found his story a little interesting because, there's a lot that I could go into it, but essentially it's wizards, parallels back to Lord English and General Harry Potter, and then, that may or may not definitely be a Kurlos hinting at the end.
Yeah.
Like, it's pretty straightforward and out there, and we'll exaggerate on that a little bit more when we talk about his correlations to particular characters and the relationships that follow. Mm-hmm. So, okay, I think we're ready to talk about particular fun facts, because that was all just kind of giving you a briefing on Cronus. Like, basically, he's an asshole, he's a douchebag, he's a flirty nice guy, but he also happens to have this interesting backstory that seems so unattached to what he is like now. And not a good chance that it's ever going to get elaborated on, but we can always imagine. So on to the next bit, fun facts. We have a few things for Cronus, and of course it's not going to be a fuck ton, because these are just minimalistic background characters that we're talking about today. But it is just still fun to bring up regardless, in case there's anything that's missed about it. So, here's the first one. Cronus doesn't smoke his cigarette. Like,
Cronus said no to drugs.
He's like our PSA mascot despite having it in his mouth constantly.
He's the fucking Dare Lion.
Dare Lion?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's what it was. I don't know.
Well, we're gonna take your word for it. I'll find it in post. So yeah, he has a cigarette in his mouth, and there are some people who like to speculate that this is a reference to The Fault in Our Stars. This is possible because I believe Openbound Part 2 came out, as said before, September 24th, 2012, and The Fall of Our Stars came out in January of that same year. So, could be a coincidence, could be a reference, we don't know, but Cronus definitely seems like the kind of guy that would make not smoking a cigarette some kind of deep metaphor.
Yeah, like, it seems entirely plausible to me that I don't even remember what the quote was specifically, but it's a really douchebaggy quote from The Fault in Our Stars that, like, there isn't some sort of inspiration back to that, because it is just kind of like, it exudes that air that Cronus exudes of just being a huge douchebag.
It's just kind of like, I'm deep. I'm really deeper. You should, like,
I'm fucking woke, me. Y'all. You should date me.
I'm fucking woke.
Woke.
Jesus Christ. We've already, like, cut away half of our fucking listeners.
Welcome to our podcast where we just try to figure out how to speak the Ampora quirk.
No, this isn't a podcast.
It's 2012.
This isn't a podcast. This is like a one-note thing that will never have any videos to follow after it, ever.
Oh my god.
Alright, so more fun facts. I happen to notice that Cronus flirts with more guys than girls. And I always hung out with that fun fact because, I don't know, some people like to interpret that since Cronus is a representation of a nice guy, he's, like, straight too. And I couldn't tell them how much more wrong they are. Because, like, I'm gonna name off some of the guys, and regardless of opinions, it is what it is. He definitely goes on a date with Hussey, even if it's like 5 seconds. Um,
God, I forgot about that.
oh, I fucking didn't.
I have nightmares about it.
It's like, yeah, so he goes on his little Easter egg date with Hussey very temporarily. You could argue, obviously, that there's some kind of weird flirtation that's going on amongst him and Matuna, and even if it wasn't the case, it's like he does express, well, I mean, it's just generally Cronus showing some kind of pitch flirtation that is more on the harassing side, kind of like how guys generally will get way too fucking personal in their flirtations with people that are obviously uncomfortable.
Yeah.
Except he's doing it in that pitch way, which is still fucking bad. So yeah, that's Hussey and Matuna. It's said that all the Dancestors outside of Mina had some weird thing for Rufio, and I wouldn't put that past Cronus. So that's a third. Funny enough, guys, Cronkri is not part of this, so he is exempt from the count of boys. The other boys would be Karkat and Tavros and Eridan. So that's 6 boys. And then girls are Mina and Arania. And that's it. But it's definitely it's definitely a higher ratio. It's
Definitely absolutely wants to kiss boys.
yeah, it's 6 out of 8, which means that is 3 out of 4. His relationships are 75% boys and 25% girls in terms of his crushes and how he has interest in people. So yeah, Cronus ain't straight. No one in Homestuck is straight. What are you talking about?
Nobody in Homestuck has ever been straight. When you're reading it, like when you're actively reading it, it doesn't seem that way. But when you actually like pull it apart and put it in numbers, it's like, oh no, yeah, you're right. Like,
Yeah.
because it does. At least when I was reading it, it felt like Cronus flirted with everybody. But at the same time, like I was reading it when it was still actively updating.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
that doesn't mean shit for nothing.
Yeah, Cronus isn't picky. He'll flirt with a lot of people. Like he flirted with this weird yellow guy in the bushes, like, or trees. It's fine.
Well, but how could you not?
I could not in multitudes of ways.
I could not. Full stop.
All right, so we were on that longer than I thought we would be. Here's another fun fact. I'm pretty sure that Seahorse Dad, the one stolen by Hussey from Cronus, is actually seen outside of Openbound in one particular intermission panel. I could be wrong about it being an intermission panel, but I definitely do remember that it happened in regards to Seahorse Dad being seen again. I just thought that was really neat to point out. Mm-hmm. Cronus wears a white shirt because he is trying to represent himself as a human, and that represents the fact that, you know, the humans in Homestuck like originated wearing white shirts. And it's a pretty clear contrast as well to Mina and the fact that she wears a black shirt, which is supposed to represent the parallels between her and Alternia. So yeah, more neat facts about fashion, baby. Ooh, we're gonna get to another fashion thing right now. Did you guys know that Cronus dresses as a greaser? And greasers within history have usually been a persona that was used to identify, you know, cool guys, but generally those cool guys came from classes of low income. And that in itself is interesting because Cronus is a rich motherfucker.
Such an asshole.
It's like, how do you double culturally appropriate? You said you're gonna be human, but you know you're not actually. And then you're gonna be like, I'm going to base myself off of this cool persona and tell you guys that I'm like so woke, despite the fact that I am literally dressing up as like the dollar store challenge.
Yeah.
It's like, yeah, Cronus is like an asshole, and I don't think
it's really bad.
I don't think he understands that, because I like to believe that he only understood what humans were 5 minutes ago, because there'd be no reason for them to really know what humans are until they start appearing in the bubbles. But it's still just very ironic that he's literally dressing up as like the lower class. Like, he's trying that fucking hard, and yet he has like a treasure chest full of his jewelry hiding around somewhere.
Yeah.
Ugh. But you know how it be? I mean, probably not, because probably not, because the majority of people, at least probably listening here, know fucking better.
God, You
God.
know how it be sometimes to just culturally appropriate by accident.
I mean, yeah, by accident. I mean, who knows what Cronus has also done without accident, but that's neither here nor there. He has written a song in canon. I mean, written. It's very inferred between people whether or not he actually wrote it, and the name happens to be the same, whether or not Cronus is a fucking punk who doesn't write his own music.
He
But
definitely doesn't write his own music.
yeah, maybe. Cronus introduces a song to Mina when trying to woo her called, and I quote, Pumpkin Party in Sea Hipster's Water Apocalypse. Or, in his quirk, Pumpkin Party in Sea Hipster's Water Aquapocalypse. Aquapocalypse! Aquapocalypse! Let me try that again. Pumpkin Party in. God. Pumpkin Party in Sea Hipster's Water Apocalypse. There we go.
You got the way better the first time.
What the fuck? How? No. We're gonna do this again. Pumpkin Party in Sea Hipster's Water Apocalypse.
Ooh, there you go.
Okay,
That was a
there we
professional
go.
take.
I don't make mistakes. I make challenges for myself. Okay. So yeah, that's neat. Here's another neat fact, which you can take this how you want. There's always been a debate about whether or not grub sauce is grub. Not grub as in grub cattle, but grub as in troll grub. And let's be fair, we have more evidence for that because grub cattle definitely does exist. But there's more evidence to the idea that grub sauce being made out of grubs can be something on Alternia. Like, you look at particular elements of Friendsim even nowadays, where it's like, there are obviously troll horns in the background used for interior design. It's obviously the fact even that, like, in Amesia's route, fucking, you can literally, as a high blood, order a fucking lower class citizen to be used as your paint with their tongue cut out. Like, I don't think they're opposed to eating babies.
Yeah. I want to say that somewhere in Hive Swap or in Friendsim, it even like lightly implies that like, yeah, it's actual grubs, but I could definitely 100% be making that up.
Yeah, I don't know, but there's a lot of implications and
Yeah, definitely the higher up you go though, which just kind of like pulls back to that whole thing of
yeah.
like Cronus I think saying it at one point to Arania. It just like they're both high blood, so if it's a real high blood thing to use the lower class, it's just like whatever condiment or accessory.
Yeah,
It makes
like
more it makes a lot of sense for it to be like a colloquialism that a colloquial a word that they use.
yeah, it's like the higher you go, the more that you can treat people beneath you as like
Fodder.
yeah, like literally you can order a troll. You can if you can objectify them as something that's just as delivery, then there's no doubt in my mind that you can order a grub pizza on delivery as well.
Would you like real grub or soy grub? Real grub.
I hate it. Um, but yeah, the reason that this relates to Cronus is because I found that maybe one thing that emphasizes this is when Mina is feeling a little self-conscious about the fact that her Alternian timeline self definitely does use Matuna as a helmsman, and she's just like, well, yeah, I mean, I didn't do that yet. And Cronus is like, oh yeah, sure, no grub sauce on your hands. And let's be fair, the reason like this just stands out because do you ever hear someone say no blood on your hands when talking about someone who doesn't want to feel guilty about doing a crime, and you think that they're referring to cow blood? Like, no, that definitely sounds like it's a reference to something that would be on some kind of tier of their same level, aka actual grubs.
Delicious.
Yeah, I find it very ironic that this is coming from Cronus the baby eater.
No.
I mean, it's fitting. Probably not intentional, but it's fitting.
Yeah. Actually, I wouldn't be surprised if that was something that wasn't intentional, like intentionally unintentional or something like that.
God, yeah. Please, Hussy, put it in the Openbound future book, please.
Dear Husty,
Yeah, let's
please
see how
answer my
many,
questions.
Let's see how many of this stuff we bring up about Cronus does or doesn't show up in that book, which will probably be 0 of what we're talking about.
Yeah. There's like one paragraph. He's like, I didn't even really think about this when I wrote it.
God.
That's it.
Probably. It'll just also be something about how fucking stupid he is and how his hair is dumb.
This guy right here sucks.
Yeah, I mean, that's valid.
Yeah.
God, this is going way over the time that we thought.
I mean, it's gonna happen.
True. Our we're supposed to go for an hour, so more, that's definitely okay.
Mm-hmm.
Let's see. Cronus writes slam poetry. Yeah. I mean, he writes songs apparently, like just of any sort, and apparently he writes slam poetry, which is supposed to be the troll equivalent of rap, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So Cronus writes rap. Did like any of the songs that he wrote to Mina, could any of those have been rap?
Oh, I hope so.
Ugh.
Oh, I hope so. You know he's not good at it.
I mean, okay, let's be fair. Cronus isn't good at like regular rap, but if he had to make a diss track, he would fucking own it.
Yeah, I bet he could do like a pretty decent diss track. It's like when you go, so it's like getting the CD from when you go into Subway and the guy's like, "Hey, you know, I have my own mix album." And you're like, "Hey, that's great. I just want to get my sandwich, dude." He's like, "Yeah, but you can have this on the house for free." And he slips his mixtape into your fucking bag, and you're like, "Thanks, Subway
Uh,
guy. I kind of just came here for one thing." And you go home and you listen to it, and you're like, "You know what? This could almost be a bop, but I hate it."
I mean, that definitely does read as Cronus. He seems like he would be good at diss tracks specifically too, because he's really good at like reading people and their flaws specifically when he wants to dig at them when he feels particularly irritated.
Yeah, he's really good at that.
Yeah, like poor Matuna, and also he definitely did dig at Mina and the whole Empress thing, and I'm like, he kind of has you there, kind of,
Yeah, those ones are valid a little bit.
just a little valid. Cronus is a little valid.
Cronus valid? Confirmed.
Not in 2019.
Fuck.
Ugh. Here's another neat fun fact, which is literally me just putting in the shit post. The fucking panel where Arania is like mind controlling them, and it just has like three Cankries, like Latula, Mulin, Eridan, Matuna. Just Cronus is the only one with eyebrows, and I noticed that very hard.
This is so fucking funny.
This is a fun fact that has no bearing whatsoever to be proved as important, but we're just gonna mention that anyways. Substance.
Character development, eyebrows.
If you're not valid, then you don't have eyebrows.
Those eyebrows aren't on fleek, you're not valid.
Cronus is the only valid character in Homestuck because he has eyebrows for that entire panel. God, so much shit.
That's like the stupidest fun fact I think I've ever known anybody to know.
Yeah.
I hear the pitter patter of your feet and you bust the door open. You're like, did you know that he has eyebrows in this one panel?
I mean, I would definitely be the person to say that out of all fucking people on the internet. Did you know that Cronus Ampora has eyebrows?
Just
I didn't
full
know
stop
if you
in
were
general.
aware, but he knows how to express himself with those lines.
Can raise them up, can raise them down.
Ugh, unfortunately. All right, we're done with our fun facts.
We did it.
Somehow, now that we're kind of done talking about Cronus for who he is, in terms of like more so facts versus like opinions, we are just gonna briefly mention that Cronus is an asshole, an absolute douche, but we still like him enough to make this. And outside of the fact that I talk shit on Twitter, we just had to make this, but we also wanted to make this. Like banana over here,
It's me.
definitely, you definitely wanted to come over, like
Yeah,
literally.
absolutely. Like again, I'm probably Ampora apologist number one for the rest of my life, and I make a lot of jokes of being like, yeah, Cronus and Eridan did nothing wrong. Yeah, they're the best characters in the entirety of Homestuck. But when I say that, what I really mean is they have a lot of problems and they've done a lot of things wrong, and I'm 100% aware of it. But they're extremely interesting for it, and I think more people should talk about that instead of just writing them off as being like, oh, they're bad.
Yeah, I mean, people are more than welcome to not put their time into these characters. Like, there's nothing,
100%.
yeah, there's nothing wrong with that. It's just we personally want to. Life is short. Capitalism is on the rise. I just want to live life simply paying attention to what characters I want.
I simply want to talk about fish boys, and that's it.
Yeah. Okay, look. If any future hive swaps want to show us some more fish that I can get attached to, maybe there will be a day where I'll change my name from Crow to Sea Dweller number 35.
Did you see the fucking sea dweller that Poinko had designed where she's got two shell phones and she carries her Lucis around in a fishbowl purse?
Yeah, it's like a catfish.
Yeah, it's so good. We stan.
It's so fucking good.
There she is.
Yeah,
Where's my sea dwellers?
I need more sea dwellers. Fuck.
Shakes fist at God. Like,
Please, we are as thirsty as these fucking fish.
we're derailing.
Just a little. Okay, so now we're here talking about relationships, because Cronus has a few of those. He doesn't talk to every character of his team, and so we don't know what his interaction is like. Like, you could say, oh, everyone finds him distasteful, and that's probably true, but there are, of course, different ideas on how there are different, like, differences in regards to how he is with these people. I personally, for example, like seeing him and Mulan as server player partners because that would parallel to Nepeta and Eridan.
Would you say that they would probably be like more friendly with each other as opposed to Eridan and Nepeta? Because I'm really interested in like your take on that relationship. I don't know why. I just really am.
They could. She could either be tired of him and just his, and just his bullshit. I could imagine him definitely like trying to prod her about trying to ship him with someone or writing any kind of like friend fic, and it's like she's just like, next time for like.
I don't really want to do that, dude.
Yeah, I don't really wanna. But at the same time, I could definitely see a side where she's more than enthused that someone is into this romantic bullshit. Like,
I feel like, okay, hear me out. I feel like at one point, like they became friends because she was like, "Hey, I wrote this really sweet friend fic about you, and I don't want to post it without your permission." And he read it. He was like, "Great." And then to himself later, he was like, "I could get more of this if we were friends, though."
God, he fucking would though.
He's that dude.
I remember someone had a take for Wizard Cronus where it could be seen where maybe he had an interest in her, not just because of quadrant interest, but also even the idea of I'm a wizard and you're a mage. It just works like that.
Oh my god.
I mean, big possibility. But that's definitely our headcanons, which we're not even in yet. We're talking about the actual fucking relationships that he has with people. He doesn't talk to everyone, as said before, but he does talk to particular ones that I feel are more interconnected with him having a dynamic with them versus everyone else who he may or may not actually be close to. One of those people, for example, being Mina, especially. We, unfortunately, do not know a lot about Before Us to know how much of a relationship they have. Like, we don't know if they were as close as, like, Eridan and Fefri. We don't know what their friendship was like, if anything, on Before Us. But there's definitely speculations to be involved with. It's definitely known that Cronus is interested in her from, like, a quadrant perspective.
100%.
And he's very bad at it too, and she's just fucking done as soon as she figures out that he has no use for her in this army. Well, she's like, yeah, I'm done talking to this fool, especially if he's just gonna start trying to get me into his little square.
Yeah. Peace. Later.
But yeah, she'd definitely run away from that conversation once given the chance, and I would too. But yeah.
Same.
Let's get this one out of the fucking way. Cronus and Cronkri.
Oh.
Yeah.
It's so my guilty pleasure, but like canonically there's nothing there for them and they're absolutely horrible for each other.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I've been talking a bit. Why don't you take this one over?
Okay. I was going to say, there's a lot that I could say about this as, again, Erikar shipper number 1 back before my Galora days. Fucking by contrast to like Eridan and Karkat, who actually seem to, at least it's implied that they have like a pretty decent like relationship with each other because they're constantly talking to each other to the point where I think like 2 characters bring it up. I think both Kanaya and Fefri have brought it up. Correct me if I'm wrong. I know that Fefri brings it up.
Like Fefri and Kanaya bring it up, and I feel like it's a little bit hinted even in Hussey's author notes.
Yeah, that's true, huh? I forgot about that. Anyway, like they definitely have like what seems to be like a pretty good friendship, and there's a lot that I could say about that. But with Cronkri and Cronus, it's mostly just Cronkri doing his bullshit and trying to like seem like the wokest person in the room, where he just kind of enforces Cronus's bad habits. Like one of my things when it comes to both of the Amporas is that like the thing that I find most interesting about them is that they do at some point show some sort of regret for their actions, which is kind of important when it comes to like a character building sort of standpoint. And there is a point where Cronus says, you know, like, hey, I think I'm faking this humankin thing. And then immediately Cankry like jumps in and he's like, no, you can't say that, because if you say that, then you're going to be offending people who are kin. And how could you possibly do that? It would offend me specifically. And Cronus is just kind of like, oh, all right, I guess.
Well, yeah,
And
it's like Cankry, like Cronus is just like, maybe I should give it up because, you know, it's not doing much. And Cankry's like, I'd be incredibly disappointed. And also, poor baby Cronus, you gotta believe in yourself. This is perfectly fine. Bury your flaws, turn them into insecurities. And Cronus is just like, oh boy, howdy, you're right, Cankry.
yeah, and there's something that could be said too about Cronus like being told that, and it being something that he, as a person who isn't ready to like grow,
Mm-hmm.
wants to hear in order to be like, oh, I don't have to change, you know, because like Cronus is still a bad person.
Yeah.
So him looking for any reason to continue like his bullshitty behavior, absolutely.
Yeah.
But at the same time, like that was like a second where if he were like still a character who could develop and change and was still alive and had the ability to do that, that would have been like a perfect opportunity for him to like turn around as a character, and he didn't. He
Like,
never will.
I think it plays into the fact that Cronus is kind of a passive guy. And what I mean by passive, he's very malleable. Like, I think it goes into the whole Bard of Hope thing where it's a passive class and he allows his hope to be destroyed and he destroys through hope. If I could really stretch some kind of correlation, I could even say that Cankry keeping him in this bubble of never growing from his flaws is just Cronus allowing destruction of himself through the hope.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
100%. I would say that that's correct.
Yeah, and it's like, we like me and Kate talked about this on the PGN podcast. Cankry is just this silent shepherd of the before trolls, but he also just kind of loves sticking his nose into things and like I said, turning his friends like flaws into insecurities and not helping them actually grow forward. He does the same thing with Latula, and it's bullshit. Like, imagine,
Yeah.
like, to be fair, Cronus still is of his own autonomy to not be an asshole, and the thing is, while Cankry isn't helping that, Cronus still is, like, he still has his own ability to not be that way. But I do wonder, what is a Cronus like who is not enabled by Cankry to keep up the bullshit?
I would like to hope a better person, honestly.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing also I like to note out too is that we can't expect too much maturity from these characters. Like, they are older than the beta trolls, but we also should consider that they left humanity, trollmanity, whatever the fuck. They, like, left the planet at 13 years old and had to raise themselves among each other's bullshit for about 6 to 7 years. Like,
Yeah, not only that, but it is mentioned in the canon too that them being stuck in purgatory like that prevents them specifically from growing as people.
yeah.
I think Arania says that. I don't remember, but somebody does say, you know, like they just can't grow anymore because they're no longer relevant. So it doesn't hold anything for them to
Yeah.
emotionally grow as people. So they just continuously like enforce each other's bullshit.
Yeah, it's like they're not only just caricatures of the beta trolls, but they're also you could even say, depending on how they were before, they could be caricatures of what they once were as their own separate characters. It's just interesting things to think about that, you know, aren't gonna get developed because who fucking cares about the before trolls, but you know,
I care.
I mean, yeah, we both care. That's why we're here. And we're still fucking talking, apparently. We don't know how to shut the fuck up.
Me kicking Hussy's door down. Let me in! Let me see those notes!
I guess we basically grilled Cankry again.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean, I do like Cankry, but you got to step back and look at him and be like, yeah, this guy just really sucks all around. Like, there's not much to his character that you could pull some sort of redeeming quality out of. Like,
yeah.
again, there's one moment with Cronus where he's like, I don't think I'm kin. I think I'm just doing this for attention, because it shows that he has some sort of like self-awareness. But Cankry doesn't have that, at least not to my memory.
He doesn't have that, and he has an ego complex.
Oh boy, does he.
Yeah. The moral of this relationship dynamic is Cankry is, in my opinion, hot take, if you put them in a room with each other, able to manipulate better than Cronus, and also Cronus doesn't even flirt with him. So cronkri is dead. Sorry.
Yeah, like you can definitely imply it like I do, but he doesn't flirt with them at all.
Yeah, he doesn't flirt with him at all, and it's nega Erikar.
It's Bizarro Erikar. Man, Erikar is great. It's underrated. I know this isn't the Erikar podcast, but it could be.
Oh my god. I mean, next time I say rhetorically, as this is only going to be the only episode ever.
Welcome to episode 24, where I talk for an hour and a half about Aridin and Karkat.
Good fucking lord. Alright, Matuna. There's a lot to talk about this, but at the same time, it's been done to fucking death.
It's so bad.
Yeah, I mean, there isn't really much to say. As much as I say that Cronus has a lot to them, there's not much to say about this. He's a dick to Matuna. Like, you can be the biggest Cronus fan, but if you look at their fucking thing, their, like, conversation and how he talks to Matuna, and you're just like, oh, it's not that bad. He has a reason. It's like,
no, it's hot garbage. I don't care what your reason is. Don't talk to people like that.
Yeah, this is the Cronus stands telling you Cronus needs to shut the fuck up and get kicked in the crotch for fucking treating Matuna like hot garbage.
Just fucking picking him up like he's stinky garbage and putting him away in the trash.
Yeah,
get rid of
setting that trash on fire and rolling it down.
Get rid of this.
Yeah, it's like, yeah, there's not much to say. How he treats Matuna is shit. I think some people like to infer the idea that it's been a long-term kind of weirdly abusive dynamic between them, but there's nothing that actually canonically states that. Cronus definitely does show abusive behavior. I'm not saying that he doesn't. We just don't know much outside of the perspective that Openbound and also by extent Mina gives us, and that's something to be left up to interpretation versus being like shoved to anyone's face as fact.
There is like interpretations of like why Cronus acts that way towards Matuna, of being like, you know, he's feeling bitter about the fact that they probably did have some sort of like friendship or pitch relationship or like vague pitch relationship between each other before Matuna's accident, and then after his accident of him becoming like a completely different person due to the damage that was done to him. Cronus like loses one thing that he had, and now he no longer has anything, and that's hopeless for him.
Yeah.
Whereas having at least one thing was very hopeful. It's an interesting interpretation on that relationship. Yeah. However, it doesn't excuse a lot of the garbage that he says, but
absolutely.
It's an interesting depth to it, I think.
We're actually on opposing sides with this, because I could see it, and if it was ever confirmed as canon, sure. The only reason I'm like allergic to it is because so many people use it as sad stuck awooby.
Yeah, I'm not down for that. I hate that. No thanks.
I actually see it where there's no respect whatsoever, and it's actually more antagonizing. Maybe there's some past conflict between them, which would parody Fan and Aerosol, but Fan and Aerosol has always been the worst unhealthy implications of a pitch relationship that's more platonic hatred, and I could see that platonic hatred between Cronus and an actual abled Matuna, to where maybe Matuna is even more like a Fan and Solix, who has that more cocky attitude that I've seen between him and Aridin in Fanon. And probably maybe some of Cronus's anger could come from the fact that, you know, who knows, maybe this guy was always getting away with shit, especially in the system of before us, maybe that Cronus himself couldn't get him in trouble for, and then suddenly he becomes this idea of someone who needs to be coddled, that can get away with stuff in actuality, and Cronus is just pissed about the fact that that is what it is now, and now this is Cronus's own Revenge of the Nerd, except he took it too fucking far.
Doesn't Cronus at some point make that comment of like, it's not that, I think he says that he's like, Matuna's just acting that way so that Latula will take care of him or something? He makes some comment about it.
He mentions that he thinks that the bifurcated whole shtick is just like an act. He does mention that. It's a lot of headcanon fuel, but that's just what it is, headcanon fuel. So you guys should keep in mind that none of this is actually canon. What is canon is that he is an asshole to Matuna, and that's that on that. So that's like his main squeezes when it comes to interaction. The next ones that we have is like, let's get this one out of the way. Mini Strife. He winds up dating Aridin, and then has awkward interaction with Tavros. It's awkward. What else is there to say? It's fucking awkward. Homestuck's fucking awkward. So many fucking characters are awkward. And Cronus is desperate, and like Aridin is like, I'm not even like this. Which, you know, maybe should be an idea for people to maybe nowadays stop still making Aridin as desperate as Cronus.
I mean, that's the whole reason that Cronus is so desperate, is because people thought that Aridin was desperate, and he's not.
Yeah, you'd think that Cronus's existence would be trying to spread a point. As said before, Arania mentioned that he tried to hit on her once, but what's surprising about that, and that's basically the only thing that she mentions about him outside of his backstory, which she kind of mocks before Mina's like, hey, you know, don't dupe on people's religions. Mm-hmm. Which I actually found surprising from Mina, since she really doesn't like Cronus herself.
Mina's an interesting character.
Yeah, Mina's like, I hate all these fucking people, but also they're my friends.
Yeah. I hate these fuckers, but also they're alright, I guess.
Yeah, and Arania's like, I'm going to impress this girl that I love by shitting on fucking Ampora.
Absolutely dunk on this nerd.
Yeah. Fucking Arania. I love Arania, but this is the Arania episode. This is the only ever existing Cronus episode.
You keep saying that, and then you keep saying things to contradict it later.
Shh, it's fine.
Welcome to the Perfectly Generic Podcast.
Stop!
I'm your host.
You're not allowed to say that.
My podcast now.
God. So, last little relationship we have that's actually canon kind of relationship. Which I don't think the wiki touches on that much at all, and it's a real damn shame. Carlos. Anything you want to say about Carlos?
You know, weirdly enough, no. Well, the thing is like, I've only recently gotten interested in, like, Kurlaz and Gamzee and their whole deal and their relationships with other characters, just because, excuse me, one of my friends is a huge Makara stan. And the fact that you brought it up initially, I was actually really interested in hearing what you had to say about it, since I have no particular take on it.
Carlos, okay. Admittedly, there is not a lot there, but if you actually dig into it and read between the lines, you can interpret some pretty fucking interesting things. The wiki specifically states that Cronus is scared of Kurlos, and this could be inferred with the fact that, you know, GHB killed Dualscar, and that's a fine interpretation, but you have to remember, this is not necessarily a fact, it's just kind of a connection that you could make. Now, one connection that you could actually make that I feel is a little stronger is the fact that at the end of Arania's description for Cronus's backstory, she specifically says that someone possibly talked him out of his belief of magic, and it was either a friend or someone who's in league with the Dark Magician. And I found that very interesting because it just seems like something very specific to tack on, and the only person that could really fit both of those descriptors that would be, like, relevant in a time where other people would be able to talk to Cronus being only the other 11 trolls, Carlos seems to fit that. Like, first of all, I won't be surprised if Cronus doesn't understand anything that Damara is saying, but he says, like as said before, Carlos scares him. There has to be a reason for that.
Yeah.
I personally always found, like, some interesting parallels between him and Matuna's backstories, but we'll get to that, because we're actually almost done with this relationships shit.
Elise.
Now, that's all we have to say about Carlos. Now, here's one that has nothing to do with what happens in Openbound or Mini Strife, but this actually has to do with Fanon and, like, how people interpret, or not Fanon, this has to do with Fandom and how they interpret these two characters. And we're not going to spend too long on this because I only have, like, quick takes, but whatever. And I'll let you lead this one off, Bana. Cronus versus Zebruh.
Gah. Me and my strong hot takes on that. So it's kind of like circling back around to saying, you know, like, Cronus shows some doubt for his actions. He doesn't seem fully invested in what he's trying to sell people, though he is still, like, selling it because he wants attention and he wants people to like him. You know what I mean? He wants to try and fill some sort of void that he's not getting, and he's doing it in the inappropriate way.
Yeah.
Zebruh doesn't show any sort of, like, questioning for the way he thinks about, like, things and low bloods. He thinks he is like the smartest person in the room and like the most aware person on Alternia when it comes to like anything. He doesn't for a second think that he could possibly be wrong. So his actions have a much different light to them because of that kind of attitude. Like with Cronus, it's easier to see him as being like, you know, I don't want to say misguided, but for lack of a better word, I suppose. I'm not trying to like say it as a way to excuse him. That's kind of how you hear the word misguided used a lot. But
it's like Cronus has a little bit of doubt, and also his generalness in my eyes is more along the lines of I want attention and having some kind of idea of that being part of fornication is like ideal. And then Zebruh's is more so like I want fornication. That's all.
Yeah, Zebruh is deliberately ignorant and it's
horny.
And horny. Arrested for horny crimes. I hate him so much.
People try and say they're the same, but one of the ways to
they're
knock that
not.
off. Yeah, one of the ways to knock that off is that I feel that if you just try to measure it, especially with how much other shit Cronus has to his character, like Zebruh probably shows more thirst points in his dialogue than Cronus does.
Absolutely. I mean, his whole typing quirk revolves around like how he's flirting with you, depending on what's on the other side of his sentences. Like, I would love to find something redeemable about Zebruh, but I cannot.
I can't as well. I really can't. Like, I try and like every character. I don't hate Zebruh, but I just like him for the comical route that he provides and also how it affects the rest of the story. I don't like him like I like Cronus.
Yeah, I like Zebruh and Marvis's route. That was fun.
Yeah, he was actually, in my opinion, a little bit more tolerable in that route.
Yeah, because he was just kind of being a teen, and you're like, okay, cool, I can like hang out with it. I did not like him calling me sweetie. I was gonna throw up. Like when I read, I was like, don't talk to me ever again.
Here's another thing. Cronus doesn't own slaves. Next question.
Yeah, that's the other thing.
Like, I know that people are gonna be like, well, Cronus is Dual Scar, and Dual Scar definitely owns slaves. And
an orphaner is something completely different from just like, a slave owner.
You could be like, well, Cronus is Dual Scar, and yeah, that. And it's like, you are entirely correct that Cronus is Dual Scar, and Dual Scar owns slaves. But here's the thing. We're not comparing Dual Scar to Zebruh. We are comparing basic bred bitch before us, Cronus. And we are saying he is better in that regards to Zebruh. Like, just don't try and make Cronus worse than the slave owner.
And I mean, like, Cronus, I don't even think has genocidal views like Aridin does, so he's already...
He really doesn't,
he's better than his own descendant by that point.
Yeah, it's so interesting how, like, Hussey's words are taken into, like, face value word of God, while he does have a personality to his self-insert in which you're not supposed to take everything as word of God, and some things you're supposed to just take with a grain of salt. Not everything, but some parts are very obvious, and some people really didn't fucking get that. Like, on the PGM podcast, we basically said that Damara is actually the worst character.
Yeah, when you guys were talking about her, I was like, oh, you know what? That's a great point. She does really suck. Because, like, her compared to, like, Handmaiden and then Damara ? That's, like, living with Scratch. Completely different characters.
Yeah. Like, sorry guys, there are characters that are worse than Cronus, and that's just something that's you're gonna have to be woke about.
That, and like when you say a character is the worst character, there's different meanings to the word of like using the word worst on something.
Yeah, like you can't just say this character is the worst. There are like different Razzie rewards and all that.
Yeah, like Cronus is the worst, but he's not the worst.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyways, are we done roasting Zebruh?
I don't want to talk about Zebruh anymore. Get that taste out of my mouth.
Cool. It's like, look, Cronus is a Lunchable, but at least he's not. At least he's not Zebruh, which is like
below. It's like a Lunchable you found in the garbage, and you're like, well, it's not open.
Ew, that's.
I can still eat this.
All right. Okay. So next, we're going to approach headcanons. These we can actually just round off because some of them are simple, some of them are just interesting. None of these are canon, but they are just fun to think about when you are thinking about a character that you really enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So, one that I've told people before about is that, funny enough, despite how gross he is with how he flirts with people, if Cronus ever got with someone, I don't think I would see him as a homewrecker. And this seems like something random and, if anything, not true, but bear with me. I have 2 crack ideas for why this is the case and 2 actual ideas that come from canon. The first one is that his dad's a sea dweller. Oh, fuck. No, Cronus is a sea dweller. I mean, they're both sea dwellers if you really fight for it.
You're right.
Yeah, technically I'm right and I'm never wrong. His dad is a seahorse, and seahorses mate for life. They're faithful. And guess what is also related to faith? Hope. And guess who's a hope player? Those were my,
there it is.
Yeah, those were my crack reasons. My real reasons, for example, would be that Cronus doesn't actually flirt with anyone if a particular quadrant is taken. He does fixate more on red, but I've noticed in the very least that he fixates on pitch with Matuna because he obviously has a bias against Matuna, but I also noticed that Matuna's other quadrants that require a 1-to-1 to another troll, they're both taken, and then that only leaves his pitch. Cronkri has none of his open, and Cronus doesn't flirt with him once. Which makes it funny because that's the most popular Cronus ship.
Yeah.
And the other reason is because Arania describes Rufio as the anti-Cronus, and there are a lot of things to go about with them, such as Cronus is hated, and Rufio was very well received. Cronus can't get a date, and Rufio has gotten a few of them. And then Rufio is a giant homewrecker, a cheater.
Yeah. I was gonna say he cheats.
Yeah, he's
like nobody's business.
He's cheater pan. I don't know, man. I just like thinking about this and being like, I don't know, like, who's worse technically, Cronus or Rufio?
I mean, technically, Rufio. Honestly, like, I hate to say this sentence just because, it's usually used to imply something bad, but it's not the way that I mean it. But it's like, I feel like both Amporas are actually people who could be improved by being in a relationship. Greatly.
That is a spicy take.
It super is. And I wouldn't enforce it in the real life. Obviously, you shouldn't get in a relationship with somebody with the idea that you're going to make them better. But I do feel like the Amporas themselves are 2 people who would improve if they were in a relationship with somebody who felt like they could tolerate that. You know what I mean? Of taking this shit and polishing it into a nice turd.
Don't take us wrong. We are not saying, oh, give the nice guys a chance. That's so gross.
Never.
That's so gross. We're talking on the perspective of what ifs when it came to these fictional characters. And if we're going to bring up Eridan, dare I say a 13-year-old boy who has some issues that he has to deal with on Hell Murder Planet?
Yeah. I could go on about Eridan.
You could.
There's a lot to say about that.
Yeah, that would be like a whole other hour.
We're not here for that today.
Not today, not ever. I'm sure of it.
But seriously, in talking about it, by comparison, Cronus is a lot better than Eridan. It's freaky.
Yeah, I've seen people who absolutely want to slit the throats of fucking Cronus stands, but then they'll stan Eridan, and it's really amazing.
You can't do that.
It's really amazing. Oh, I snorted on the show. Podcast over. Non-existent podcast over.
Cut the whole thing out. It's all ruined.
Yeah, it was ruined from the start. We shouldn't have even done this. I have a headcanon that Damara, the reason that Carlos got to Cronus with his disbelief versus Damara, is that I kind of feel that it was a part of Damara eventually going back to ruin the timeline, and that being correlated to her working with Lord English. I feel like she was able to fuck with everyone in regards to going back in time and doing that. I have a personal headcanon that she would not have been able to do that with Cronus, because she is a witch of time, and Lord English, who is described as a magician, who I could kind of correlate to a wizard if you do the whole Harry Potter thing as well, he would essentially be the parallel of a wizard in time. And he went and did time travel to try and attack Cronus, and he got little cowled. So I don't think that Damara, who is vastly underpowered versus him, would do so well trying to also time travel and attack Cronus somehow. So I feel like the only way that things could maybe work out is if we got the other guy. And that's where I think Carlos comes in.
Yeah, that's extremely interesting to me.
Yeah, it's just class spec play and all that.
Yeah.
Another thing as to why I definitely think that's Kurlis at the end of his description is that Cronus's bio that Arania gives very much parallels Matuna's, and I found that interesting. They both go through this arc basically being self-made prophets that are supposed to predict a bad future, presumably a bad future that involves Lord English, and nobody believes them. And then something happens off screen to where both of these characters have a change of persona. And whereas Cronus says that either a friend convinced him or someone in league with the Dark Magician did, Matuna's hints that the only quote-unquote witness was Kurlis.
Yeah.
And I find that parallel very interesting and suspicious.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know. That's some of the only times in which I like look at Cronus and Matuna from like a analysis perspective that is outside of fucking Cronus absolutely roasting him, and I'm like,
yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm like, this is actually interesting. Give me more.
Yeah, it's weirdly something I don't see people talk about, at least not anymore. Obviously, nobody likes Homestuck anymore who reads that. But it's an interesting hot take of like the parallels between all of that.
Yeah, it's just subtleties that you're not going to catch if you don't care, and no one has to care. It's just for us fans. It's fine.
Mm-hmm.
All right, what else? I mean, Cronus is passive. He's a bard, and that's already a passive class compared to like a prince, and then he's a bard of hope. Cronus just seems like he has more bark than bite. Like, he would not survive Alternia winter.
Hell no.
Like, he's like, I would have called you on our planet if it met what it should have from Alternia or whatever the fuck he said.
I would have been this big dick high blood if we lived on Alternia. Hell no.
Cronus, you would get your ass handed to you day one, first hour.
Big fucking baby hands over here.
Yeah, like, when Mina breaks his gun, he apparently cries. It's like, you are a dumb bitch, baby. You're not gonna survive. But yeah, he's like Cronus is more bark than bite. Like, he talks a lot, but he's a fucking coward, too.
He's overdramatic. He's worse with his words. Like, he's definitely, like, the king of saying mean shit, and that's it.
Exactly. Like, let's be honest. I have a feeling that if Matuna just couldn't take it anymore, he would absolutely wreck Cronus' shit. Cronus would get the shit beaten out of him by Matuna.
Yeah.
He could do it one day.
Matuna is much stronger. I think anybody is much stronger than Cronus.
Yeah. I mean, Cronus is a high blood, but in terms of, like, how dramatic he definitely is, like...
I think if he was, like, presented with the opportunity to beat the shit out of someone, he wouldn't. He might, like... He would probably cry. You know what? He would cry.
Like, look, all I'm saying is that when Slampora happened, he didn't get up. We never saw him get up. He's probably still there.
Fucking rip.
God, what else do we have? I had this stupid little idea that Cronus would have been coal-worthy coal-bait on Beforce, and that sounds very hard to believe with how high and mighty he sounds about being on the caste system in terms of being a violet. But bear with me, and this is something that could or couldn't be true. We don't know how Beforce society works, but we do know it was ran by Beforce Fefri, who not only liked to coddle people that are beneath her if they really needed help, but she definitely did, in my opinion, in some perspectives, it kind of felt like she almost used her idea of culling to basically coddle and try and tisk in regards to her relationship with Aridin.
Yeah.
Like, their relationship felt less like a Moira allegiance and more like babysitting.
Yeah, it felt more like your big sister taking care of you.
Yeah, and I just, like, think about that, and I'm like, well, Cronus, he's a high blood. But if Aridin was likewise more or less with those small little features, an easy target for Fefri to possibly test out some of her like coddling culling ideas on, who's to say that Fefri wouldn't possibly coddle any violet bloods that needed help in her perspective, since the culling system only keeps going up until it hits that fuchsia limit.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, she's at the absolute top, so anybody is her oyster, basically.
Anyone's her oyster, but I could definitely see her, especially since everyone else can coddle each other outside of, like, violets, and unless it's maybe, like, another violet, it would just be, she would have a large collection of violets, and by violets, I mean cuttlefish, for that juicy parallel. That being said, Cronus went around talking about magic, which isn't real, and he was talking about some green goblin coming out of the sky and fucking him being the one to defeat him, and he got these special scars because of it as a baby. I feel like Feffrey would think this guy needs some help.
Yeah, this boy right here needs extra coddling.
Yeah, so I think it's a possibility that Cronus could have gotten, like, cold. Like, if you can get cold on Alternia, even as a Violet Blood, in special circumstances, you can get fucking cold on Beforus, in which their coaling system is more so based off of, like, a systematic oppression of, like, forced codependency versus killing someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's that one thing. What else? Here's just some fun stuff. Cronus looks like he wears eyeliner in his talk sprite, and I think that's really neat. I like thinking he's nearsighted because, I don't know, I actually noticed this as a fun fact. Cronus is the only one that doesn't wear eyewear in parallel to his descendant.
I guess he is, huh?
Yeah, like, Latula and Terezi wear eyewear, Arania and Vriska wear eyewear, Equius and Horus wear eyewear, Matuna and Solix wear eyewear, Feffrey and Mina wear eyewear. Like, Cronus is the only Dancester that doesn't wear eyewear like their beta.
Yeah, and it's definitely believable that he ditched it when he was like, I'm a greaser now, I'm not a nerd.
Yeah, and maybe he's nearsighted, possibly. I mean, Mina definitely is able to leave the conversation without him, like, noticing. I don't know, he just seems... there is definitely the idea that he is not wearing glasses like he should.
Yeah.
Alright, what else do we have? Literally one more headcanon idea. Cronus is a nice guy archetype, but I could definitely see him, like... I could definitely see, if you wanted to dig into his character to where his archetype would develop, that doing that in regards to figuring things that happen in the game or on before us through headcanons is the first step to go. Like, what elements would combine together to make this nice guy, in which you can either look at the final cake or you can look at what eggs and how much flour was used to create this cake. And yeah. Cronus, I don't know, when he's, like, in this nice guy trope where he's, like, he thinks he's owed things, it kind of, in my opinion, could seem like it could even come from the Beforan system. Like, what if he was, like, in charge of having to show calling traits to those that were below him in his friend group? And it's something that he could have thrived off of, or even maybe he didn't, because Mina ran to the moon for a reason. Like, maybe regardless of how Cronus felt about this, there's a responsibility that was either a struggle or a burden. Maybe Cronus in the afterlife is just like, you know, I did shit during fucking Beforus. I did as much as I could. Or even Cronus is just like, I pulled in so much effort during the game with my beliefs, with what I was going to try and accomplish with this. I feel like I'm owed some kind of fucking respect.
Yeah.
Oh, I want to know more.
I just want to know more about this nasty boy, please.
Please, tell us more about this nasty boy. What made him nasty?
I want to know, because there's so much that implies that, yeah, Cronus wasn't liked by his friends, so there's probably something to say about, like, he was probably an asshole even on Beforus, but there's a lot to imply that he wasn't, like, you know, he wasn't Eridan level especially, and he wasn't Cronus level before they started the game.
I think that Cronus definitely is worse than he used to be.
Yeah, he
Arania described that he's more jaded than usual.
Yeah.
There's just a lot that I want to know, but we've already described about the fact that that's probably not gonna happen yet much in terms of, like, things revealed.
Yeah, fingers crossed, but...
Fingers crossed, yeah. Alright, we're getting toward the end, so that's cool.
We're doing it.
We kind of already mentioned about fandom woes and fandom just different things we noticed. Like, we kind of touched on some of it. I mean, blah, 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 blah. It's funny how people can fanonize a fanonization of a character already, because Cronus was made also to replicate Fanon Eridan, and yet Cronus himself gets fanonized, and I just find it very funny.
Yeah, he kind of gets fanonized as like this sort of tragic, like actual greaser. I think a lot of people leave out the fact that he's like either a lot of people leave out the fact that he is kin, or a lot of people take like the kin thing to a genuine level. Do what you want to do and like interpret it how you want to interpret it, but a lot of people take it to the point where it's like, no, this is canon Cronus. It's like, no, it's not. I see a lot of people very strongly say that like, yeah, he is kin and he takes kin seriously because they misinterpret that conversation he has with Cronkri.
Yeah,
when that's not the case at all.
He's doing it for, like, this is my hot take. Cronus is doing it for attention. He's doing it because maybe he got some kind of enabling even from Cronkri. And when they were in the bubbles, first and foremost, they had to go through another troll planet before humans would even begin to be a thing. I really do not think that Cronus knew what a human was until Dave and Rose showed up and they started getting attention from everyone else, and he wanted that attention too. Yeah, so, yeah, Cronus gets fanonized, and it's like, to each their own. It's just, it doesn't hurt to read Openbound. It doesn't hurt to maybe get another closer look at his character, and it also helps especially to not take it to the degrees of apologizing for his ass.
God, yeah. Like you can apply any sort of sympathetic read to him as you want, like that you want, but you still have to like accept the fact that the things he does are unacceptable. And if he were a real person, he would not be somebody that you would want to forgive and forget for their bullshit.
That being said, that actually transitions into the opposite of Fanon, like Fanon, which would be anti-Fanon.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to touch on it this much, but I will just say, people who say that it's absolute fact that Cronus is on, for example, the same status of bad in terms of, like, for example, Mindfang, I just, like, obviously interpret it how you want to, but you gotta watch what you say, what is or isn't canon, what kind of misinterpretations are being spread around about what is actual fact.
Yeah.
And then, of course, you definitely have to be careful about that when you are saying it as just something, and then there are obviously people who like that character for different opposing reasons outside of the interpretation that you've made that may or may not have especially bad effects on how those people are viewed for something that may not actually be true or not.
Yeah.
That's all I have to say about that. I just wanted to say that fucking bit. I can't think of any other anti-fan like hostile fanons. I mean, there was the whole thing about him being straight and a misogynist. Like, hot take number 1100. Like, okay, he's based off a nice guy. Nice guys at their base core are usually misogynistic asswipes. That's 100% fact. Cronus is based off of a misogynistic archetype of a character. That being said, in universe, Cronus is not a misogynist, and I see that in the way of him just being an asshole to everybody, and the fact that there's not really anything brought up in regards to gender with him. He does bring up like something along the lines of like, all you girls are the same, actually all the guys too, and it's like,
yeah,
Cronus is
he's very equal opportunity.
Ass. Yeah, he's very equal opportunity asshole.
Yeah, like Cronkri is way more misogynistic than Cronus is by like 1,000 miles.
Cronkri is the misogynistic asshole of the beforeign group.
He's the poster boy of it.
We're just turning this into roast Cronkri again.
We need to stop forgiving Cronkri 2019.
Basically. And then there's just anti-hostility in general. Like, I don't know. Be nice to other Homestuck fans. Who cares who's liking what characters nowadays?
Yeah, it doesn't matter. Like, it doesn't imply anything about a specific person of what character they like. Like, yeah, maybe there are some times where there's like a person who likes a character for the wrong reasons, or they identify with the character for the wrong reasons, but that doesn't apply to everybody. And to have that kind of hostility going into anybody where it's like, oh, well, you like Cronus, so you're that person.
If it's like someone is liking Cronus because they feel like he actually deserves something with his attitude, and they actually think he's like oh, poor baby, that's obviously bad. But
yeah,
I don't
like you
I don't
and
hear
I
about
are
a lot
sitting
of
here
those...
right now having this conversation of like, yeah, Cronus fucking sucks, but we love him, you know? Because he's terrible.
A good portion of Cronus fans I've met in years are not like that idea that they are actually enabling any of his ideas being owed shit.
Yeah, I don't see any Ampora, at least in my neck of the woods, I don't see any Ampora fan like forgiving and forgetting and ignoring like the bad things about both Aridin or Cronus. And they're talking about it ad nauseum.
Yeah.
And it's the discussion that makes it so like those characters so interesting to people who do like
Exactly.
them. Of just being,
Homestuck
like,
is a conversation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's not a fucking what do you want to call it? Like a
Homestuck is a conversation, not a competition.
There you go.
Hella.
Yeah.
Like,
I was going to say a moral competition.
Yeah, it's like Cronus, like Vriska, like Aridin, like Gamzee, like whoever you fucking want. We're all gonna die at some day.
But you can't like Zebruh.
I mean, that's true. Next question.
I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
No, we gotta quote you on that. Banana Velope is a bully.
I don't ever want people to think I'm being... No!
Banana Velope is a bully? Tweet it.
I hate Zebruh fans. Send tweet. No, I don't ever want people to think I'm being serious when I say stuff like that.
I'm gonna take it out of context so you seem like an asshole.
No, you're gonna snip my words together.
Oh yeah, this is my last issue with just Cronus in terms of how he's treated outside of the comic. Where's my merch? Where's my Cronus merch? I have like
where's my temporary tattoo that I can stick to my forehead of his scar?
It's like, where's my Cronus shirt where it's his sign, but it also has like the triangles on the sleeve. Like, we love fine.
I think his shirt is so cute. I would buy that.
Yeah. Like, for our fans by fans, can we please get on that? Can that like be the only time in which printing the zodiac signs for the upteenth time is actually worth it? Anyways.
Just saying. Fucking me, someone who can draw. Where's my merch?
Where's my Cronus merch? Alright, and, what could the story of Homestuck add to Cronus's character, and what could Cronus's character add to the story of Homestuck? Even if it's not the main plot, because that's pretty much solved outside of the epilogue, and that's more so something with the Earthsea crew. What could be done with Cronus's character in the future, if ever, just in a what-if rhetorical scenario?
Yeah, that's an interesting thought for me specifically, because I have had people ask me, mostly in regards to Aridin, of like, you know, could he have been a redeemable character? And the real answer is no. But the Bana answer is, if I had to write them, it would have been much different. Yeah. Just because Cronus in particular, like, their characters set up something interesting that could have been done with them, especially in regards to the hope aspect of like with Cronus's character, it describes, you know, like each hope player is passed on like the responsibility of doing something basically about Lord English, and if one of them fails, then it passes on to the next one. Like it could have been Cronus, or it could have been Aridin, who took up the ability of doing what I think Jake does. Yeah.
Like, Jake is basically seen as, like, Cronus was a bard of hope, and that was too passive of a bard to the point, well, it was too passive of a hope player to the point where their hope aspect was just kind of brushed off into nothingness. And with Aridin, he was a prince, and that was too self-destructive for that hope aspect, and so it ultimately got obliterated. And then Jake is more of the substantial page of hope, and it's literally said from Caliborn himself that he has more of a chance of actually defeating him, as long as he like unlocks his actual potential in the future.
Yeah, which disappointingly by the end of Homestuck, he doesn't do that at all, but he does kick a little bit of ass.
Arania tried to help.
Yeah, questionable. There was something I was going to say, though. So when it comes to like what you were saying about how with Prince of Hope and it being too destructive and Bard of Hope it being too passive, it's not necessarily that those titles set them up for failure. It's the fact that their characters and their lack of any sort of like strong character moral set them up for failure with those, because Bard and Prince both have the ability of being very strong.
It's their characters in their circumstances, and one running theme with the Before and Trolls is that they show more of negative traits that correlate to their class specs versus the positives they can make out of it.
Yeah, and I mean, like, the whole point of them scratching their session anyway is to have better chances in the scratch session that comes after them. So them having so many negative traits that sets them up for failure, it only makes sense that by the next point, it's better. It's reflected
Yeah.
better in those characters, even if, like, you know, Aridin still doesn't figure his shit out and still
Yeah.
fails as a Hope player.
And like they were the prototypes. Like they were thrown into a game that they were not prepared for, so it makes sense that they did not have the most favorable outcome, to the point that they spent so much time in that session that it got so fucked over that they had to start it over with reset. Like they had to hard fucking reset and just, you know, let the new generation take over. And then that generation kind of fucked on some things, and so they had to also make the humans and all this fucking shit, blah 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 blah. Like eventually the game sorts itself out to where it has as many of the aspects as it needs to complete the rest of the game, but it definitely started from something. And Cronus definitely did start it up for Aridin, who then eventually started it up for Jake.
Yeah.
Like I find it funny actually that the alpha kids seem to hone the aspects of character trolls who died previously, because
yeah, that's right. I think you were actually the first person who drew my attention to that, and I was like,
yeah, because Roxy's a void player, Equius is dead, like Dirk is a heart player, Nepeta is dead, Jake is a hope player, Aridin is dead, and Fefri's dead, and Jane is a life player. I just find that parallel very interesting.
Brain over here.
Yeah, fucking third eye should have been a seer of heart, not a bard of heart. And we've already lost all of our listeners.
But yeah, I feel like it sucks. Well, no, it doesn't suck, but it sucks for me because I like them. They could have been very cool characters. They could have done something really cool with how like their entire story was set up, but they fucked it up.
Yeah, just they did a bad job. It's like, it's not that they did a bad job, it's just that the story wanted to be one thing, and it kind of got a little misconstrued in my opinion with like how it wanted to go, but it eventually went to that base conclusion that they were striving for in the beginning. And we had some filler, and nothing is wrong with filler. You are allowed to have characters that are not direct to the main plot just to make the world feel bigger, and some people might latch onto it. Like, you're not gonna get mad at every fucking Derpy Host fan, are you? I didn't think so.
Yeah, right?
Yeah, so it's like...
I mean, like, the problem specifically with the Dancestors, though, and I guess it kind of plays into our conversation here, is that Hussey said that, like, only Arania and Mina were important, but he knew that if he didn't, like, do all of them, then he wouldn't hear the end of it from everybody, so he kind of, like, just rushed everybody else into it, which I feel like is a little bit of a disservice to the rest of the story, but whatever.
Well, it's funny that you say that, because it's completely valid and true, probably, but it's like, it's so funny, because it could have been a rush job, but I feel like he added so much actual interesting content to consider whether or not it was something he once considered, because we've been here talking about Cronus for an hour, because we've noticed so many little things.
Yeah, and I mean, like, controversial opinion, but that's just because Hussey's a good writer.
Yeah, I mean, sorry guys, Homestuck sucks. Homestuck sucks, but also Homestuck is good. Cronus' story could just add to the idea of what he gives to the other Hope players, and in regards to what the story could do to Cronus' character, I mean, we're not gonna get it, and he's not important to the main plot, but at the same time, it definitely would be interesting for the story to give that take on how that session went and how even certain elements of that game affected who he is now, for anyone who actually is interested in those background characters. I mean, you could even argue, for example, just Cronus splitting Lord English into vessels, if that wasn't a joke, if it was true, would actually be the biggest joke in Homestuck, because the worst, probably most irrelevant character would be the cause of many issues of the main plot, which would be so fucking funny.
He did it. It was him, everybody.
It was him. That's all we have for you guys. We did our best. Lots of goofs, but hopefully this...
Goofs and juice.
Hopefully we get some okay responses. I hope you guys enjoyed this, because we definitely had fun, like, setting it up. We just hope that anyone who stuck through, and we were gonna give you a gold star for dealing with our bullshit.
You did it. You completed my podcast puzzle.
Yeah, our temporary never to do again podcasts.
Yeah. And I mean, it would also just be interesting if more people would have like a productive discussion about Cronus ever.
Yeah.
So
Oh yeah,
here we are.
Here's the thing you have to take away from this. We just talked a whole bunch of shit with Cronus, and we didn't have to. But you know what's fun about the Homestuck community? Having fun.
Having fun, being cool kids. I turn my hat backwards and I do a sick kickflip and I do it great.
Yeah.
God.
God. All right.
God.
I think we're mostly done. You want to plug yourself again, Banana?
Yeah. So you can find me as Bonenvelope on Twitter. You can also find me as the real Bonenvelope on Tumblr. It's hard to miss me. I'm everywhere. I'm screaming my opinion into the void. You'll have to hear it.
Good. And you guys can find me at YoItsCro on Twitter, Colejoy on Tumblr, and I don't know, if you want to listen about more Dancester stuff, I was on the PGN podcast, in which you should listen to every single episode, but specifically I was on the Dancester episode, and who knows?
And it was good.
Fucking thank you. So yeah, there we go. That's the episode 0 show. Any other things we can say to conclude?
Cronus did nothing wrong. And I dabbed.
Ugh. I'll just say, if Cronus was with us today, with how he likes to do his humankin relating to the most recent trends, he would be Vriskakin.
Disgusting.
That's all I gotta say. Good night.
Good night, everybody.
I can't believe Vriska killed Cronus. Oh, and there's our Vriska mention.
Oh, there it is. We did it, everybody.
There it is.
Little sound effect of people cheering here. Yay!
Yay, Vriska! Why don't you guys make a fucking Vriska episode?
Talk about Vriska.
Alright, let's stop isolating some of our audience.
Character in the entire series.
Hi,
Excuse
my
me?
roommate. That's my roommate.
She definitely could have killed Beck Noir if that stupid scratch shit hadn't happened.
Uh-huh.
Yeah. She could have won everything all by herself. She didn't need fucking anybody.
Yeah, I know, Evan.
She should have killed Andrew Hussey when she had the chance.
I think she did. No, she didn't. No.
Should have.
Should have.
Should have.
Thank you, Evan.
I'm putting this in.
Oh my god.